He'd been waiting for 47 minutes. 47 minutes, meaningless to someone who'd lived 3 millennia. But tonight, on Christmas Eve in this small cafe on Maple Street, every second felt like an eternity. The Alpha King sat perfectly still, dark hair falling past his shoulders, strong fingers wrapped around a coffee cup that had gone cold an hour ago. Outside the fogged window, Christmas lights blinked red and gold through the falling snow. Inside, people whispered, shooting him pitying glances. The couple at the next table leaned in close.
Poor guy.
Think he got stood up on his blind date. He should have left. Every instinct screamed at him to walk away, to return to the shadows where an Alpha King belonged. In 3,000 years, Desmond had never waited for anyone. Not once. Waiting meant weakness. Hesitation meant death. Love meant loss. But tonight, on Christmas Eve, something held him in that chair. Something made him break his own rules. The answer would change everything. Before we continue, I've noticed that many of you enjoy watching my videos but haven't subscribed yet. Please help support and grow this channel by liking the video, dropping a comment, and subscribing if you enjoy the stories. Thank you so much, and God bless you. Now, let's get back to the story. The barista, a kid with a nose ring and kind eyes, brought him a second coffee, free of charge. The pity gesture almost made Desmond laugh. If only they knew what he really was. What waited beneath this human facade. Around him, the cafe hummed with warmth. Families crowded around mismatched tables. The air smelled of cinnamon and wet wool. Laughter spilled from a birthday celebration in the corner. Life, in all its messy mortal glory.
And here sat the Alpha King.
Alone again. Desmond checked his antique pocket watch for the 12th time. 7:53 p.m. No messages. Only a photo from Margaret, his Pax Elder Witch, who'd set up this blind date. A woman with tired eyes and calloused hands. Beside her, a small boy with a gap-toothed smile. She's not your usual type, Margaret had said over lunch last week, sliding the photo across the table. She's a poor single mom working herself to the bone, but she's kind. And Desmond, you need something good right now. Something real. He'd almost refused. The Wolf Kingdom was in chaos. The Beta Council threatening his throne, questioning his new philosophy that maybe, just maybe, they didn't have to rule through fear alone. He had councils to attend, enemies to crush, an entire world of shadows to control. But the pity in Margaret's eyes had stopped him. That, and the bone-deep loneliness that had followed him through 3,000 years of Christmas Eves. Desmond remembered the last woman he'd loved. 1847, her name had been Catherine. You never wait, she'd whispered the night she left him. Not for me. Not for us. You're always 10 steps ahead, always calculating your next move. I'm tired of chasing you, Desmond. I'm tired of being alone with someone who's always here, but never really present. He hadn't cried. Alpha Kings didn't cry. He'd watched her walk away and told himself it was better this way. Safer. Love made you vulnerable, and vulnerability got you killed. But now, sitting in this cafe on Christmas Eve, surrounded by strangers, he wondered if she'd been right. If maybe the real death wasn't at the end of a silver blade, it was this. This endless, echoing emptiness that no amount of power could fill. His phone buzzed. Margaret, give her a chance. Real connection breaks curses you didn't even know you had. Desmond stared at the message. Curses. Yes, he knew about those. The curse of immortality. The curse of watching everyone you loved turn to dust. The curse of forgetting what it felt like to genuinely care about another person's fleeting existence. The couple at the next table kissed. The birthday girl blew out her candles. Outside, carolers passed by, their voices muffled through the glass. And the Alpha King waited. At 7:54, he made a decision. He would wait until 8 o'clock, exactly 60 minutes. Then he'd leave and never speak of this blind date again. It was logical, reasonable, the kind of boundary a man, even an immortal one, should maintain. He wrapped his hands around the lukewarm coffee cup, letting the mundane gesture anchor him to this human moment. Maybe that was what he needed. Not a grand romance, but the simple act of showing up, of trying.
The door chimed.
Cold air rushed in, carrying snow and the scent of hospitals, antiseptic and exhaustion and something else. Something that made his wolf instinct sharpen.
Blood.
Weak blood laced with stress hormones and fear. A woman stumbled through the doorway, soaked to the bone. Her old coat dripped puddles onto the floor. Dark hair stuck to her forehead. Circles shadowed her eyes. She looked like she'd been running or crying or both. She scanned the cafe frantically, her gaze landing on him, and stopped. For a heartbeat, neither of them moved. Then she crossed the room in quick, unsteady steps, words tumbling out before she even reached the table. "I'm so sorry I'm late.
I'm Ava.
My son, he was sick. I couldn't leave the hospital. My phone died." She stopped, finally seeing him clearly. Seeing the 2 coffee cups, the crumpled napkins, the way he'd clearly been waiting. Her voice dropped to a whisper, raw with something that sounded like wonder. "You waited. Why would you wait?" And Desmond, who had 3,000 years of smooth answers, found himself speechless. Because he didn't know why. He only knew that for the first time in millennia, the waiting had meant something. What made an immortal king? Desmond stood and immediately realized his mistake. At his full height, he towered over the poor single mom, aristocratic, otherworldly, completely out of place in this neighborhood cafe. The kind of man who belonged in stone fortresses, not surrounded by plastic chairs and linoleum floors. But Ava didn't flinch. She just looked up at him with those exhausted eyes and repeated, "Why did you wait?" The question felt dangerous, like if he answered honestly, he might crack open something he'd spent centuries keeping locked away. "I understand what it's like," he said carefully, "to be late for your own life." Her shoulders sagged. Relief? Or maybe something deeper. She slid into the chair across from him, and the barista, the same kid who'd brought the pity coffee, rushed over with a towel. Ava thanked him with the kind of gratitude people reserve for genuine kindness in the middle of crisis. She wiped her face. Her hands were rough, scarred from work. Hands that had scrubbed and cleaned and fought for every small mercy. "Haimey, my son. He had a fever of 103, she said. "I was at the ER for 4 hours. I tried to text, but the signal was terrible, and then my phone died, and..." She stopped herself. "I'm making excuses.
I'm sorry.
I was late. This was supposed to be, Margaret said you were. I don't even know what this blind date is supposed to be." "A date," Desmond said, and the word felt foreign in his mouth. "I think it's supposed to be a date." A small, broken laugh escaped her. "Some Christmas Eve date. I'm soaking wet and I smell like hospital." "You smell," he said truthfully, "like someone who puts their child first."
There's no shame in that.
Her eyes filled with tears. She blinked them back quickly, like someone who'd learned not to cry in public. Or maybe who'd cried so much that the tears had simply run out. The Alpha King felt something unfamiliar twist in his chest. Not hunger. Not the predatory instinct that usually accompanied the scent of vulnerable humans. Something else entirely. Empathy. The thing he'd been trying to teach his pack. The thing that had nearly cost him his throne. The radical idea that maybe, just maybe, mortals weren't merely subjects or weaklings, but people worth understanding. Worth protecting. "Tell me about Haimey," he said, and watched her transform. The exhaustion didn't leave her face, but light entered her eyes.
He's 7.
Smart as. He's 7. Smart as anything, Ava continued, her voice softening with a mother's pride. He wants to be a scientist, or a knight, or maybe both. A weak smile crossed her lips. Last week he informed me that dragons are scientifically plausible if you account for methane production and hollow bones. Despite himself, Desmond felt his mouth curve. A scholar and a warrior. Rare combination. The barista returned, and Ava's gaze dropped immediately to the menu. Desmond watched her eyes scan past the entrees, past the decent sandwiches, landing on the soup and bread combo in the corner. The cheapest item. Her fingers tightened around the laminated paper. I'll just have that. When's the last time you ordered exactly what you wanted? Desmond interrupted quietly. She looked up, startled. What? Not what you can afford. Not what's practical. He leaned forward slightly. What you actually want. Ava stared at him like he'd spoken a foreign language. Her mouth opened, closed. That's not how. She trailed off, something crumbling in her expression. I don't remember. The admission hung between them, achingly honest. Then tonight, Desmond said, catching the barista's eye, you order what you want. Everything else is handled. For a moment, he thought she might argue. But then exhaustion and perhaps something deeper, hunger, literal and otherwise, won out. The pasta. And the salad. And she hesitated. The chocolate cake. Excellent choices. Desmond ordered the same, though he'd need none of it. Food was theater for him now, a mortal costume he wore. But watching relief flood her features made the charade worthwhile. When the barista left, Ava spoke again, quieter now. Haimey's been sick for months. The doctors can't figure it out. Fevers that spike out of nowhere. Fatigue. Some nights he wakes up screaming, saying his bones hurt. Her voice cracked. I've taken him to 6 specialists. Sold everything that wasn't nailed down to pay for tests. And they just keep saying mystery illness like that's supposed to be comforting. Desmond's wolf stirred beneath his skin. The symptoms she described, sudden fevers, bone pain, unexplained power surges. He'd seen it before, centuries ago. Latent alpha blood trying to surface in a bloodline thought extinct. But he said nothing. Not yet. I'm terrified every single day, Ava whispered. Terrified I'll lose him. Terrified I'm not doing enough, not fighting hard enough. And then I feel guilty for being terrified because he needs me to be strong. She laughed bitterly.
Sadi.
This is a terrible blind date conversation.
No.
The word came out rougher than intended. It's the most honest thing anyone said to me in decades. She met his eyes, then really looked at him. Margaret said you were going through something, that you'd understand. Desmond was silent for a long moment. Around them, the cafe continued its warm chaos, clinking dishes, happy chatter, the hiss of the espresso machine. Normal life. The kind he'd observed from a distance for 3,000 years. I'm in a transitional period, he said finally, questioning whether power is worth the loneliness. Whether strength means anything if you have no one to be strong for. That sounds like something a very lonely person would say. It is. Ava reached across the table, her scarred hand covering his. The touch was brief, tentative, but it burned through him like silver fire. Then maybe, she said softly, we're both fighting the same battle, just trying to figure out what's worth holding on to. And Desmond Ronan, Alpha King, conqueror of territories, commander of packs, felt something inside him shift. Not break. Transform. This tired, fierce woman with hospital smell still clinging to her coat understood something his entire kingdom had forgotten. That real courage wasn't dominance. It was showing up, day after day, for the people you loved. Even when you were terrified. Even when you had nothing left. Especially then. Tell me more about Haimey, he said, and meant it. Tell me everything. Ava's phone buzzed halfway through dessert. She glanced at the screen, and her entire face softened in a way that made Desmond's chest ache. It's Haimey. He's asking if my friend is nice. She typed quickly, then paused. He wants to know if you'd like to come over and make Christmas cookies with us. Her cheeks flushed.
I'm sorry.
He doesn't understand boundaries yet. I'll tell him. I didn't wait 47 minutes on Christmas Eve to walk away now. Ava's fingers froze over her phone. She looked up at him, searching his face for the joke, the polite excuse. Finding none. You don't have to. I know. Desmond stood, offering his hand. But I want to. The walk to her apartment took 15 minutes, through snow-dusted streets. Ava apologized 3 times for the neighborhood, twice for the building's peeling paint, and once for the broken elevator. Desmond barely heard her. His wolf senses were cataloging everything. The scent of humans packed too close together, the weakness of the locks, the vulnerability of the third-floor walk-up. She unlocked a door marked 3C, and warmth spilled out. The apartment was tiny, cramped. The couch had seen better decades, and the kitchen was barely large enough for 2 people. But Christmas lights blinked from every available surface. A small, crooked tree stood in the corner, decorated with handmade ornaments and popcorn strings. Children's drawings covered the refrigerator. It was nothing like Desmond's fortress with its marble halls and ancient tapestries. Nothing like the cold, imposing spaces he'd built to remind everyone of his power. It was perfect. Mom. A small boy launched himself from the couch, and Ava caught him with practiced ease. Haimey was all limbs and gap-toothed grins, wearing dinosaur pajamas and mismatched socks. But when his eyes met Desmond's, something flickered there. Recognition, perhaps. Or instinct. The boy's scent hit Desmond like a physical blow. Beneath the human smell, soap and fever sweat and childhood, something else pulsed.
Power.
Raw, untamed, alpha blood trying desperately to surface. You're tall, Haimey announced. Desmond crouched down until they were eye level. Your mother is worth waiting for, he said seriously. I hope you know that. Haimey studied him with unsettling intensity for a 7-year-old. Then he grinned. She said you're nice. Are you good at making cookies? Because we're not. I'm certain we'll manage. They didn't manage. The kitchen became a disaster zone within minutes. Haimey insisted on cracking the eggs himself, which resulted in shell fragments everywhere. Ava measured flour, but Haimey bumped the bag, creating a white cloud that coated all 3 of them. Desmond, who'd commanded armies and negotiated treaties, found himself completely out of his depth trying to roll dough into shapes that resembled anything edible. That one looks like a blob, Haimey declared, pointing at Desmond's attempt at a star. It's abstract art. It's a blob. Ava laughed, really laughed, and the sound filled the small kitchen like music. Flour dusted her hair, cookie dough smudged her cheek, and she'd never looked more beautiful. When the timer beeped, they pulled out a sheet of misshapen, slightly burnt cookies. Haimey bit into one and pronounced it the best terrible cookie ever. Desmond sat on their worn couch, a 7-year-old pressed against his side, pointing out his favorite ornaments. Ava hummed Christmas carols while washing dishes. And for the first time in 3,000 years, the Alpha King understood what the word home actually meant. Not stone fortresses or displays of power.
This.
Flour-dusted chaos and a child's laughter. The kind of messy, imperfect warmth that no amount of immortality could replicate. The kind worth protecting, worth dying for. Haimey disappeared into his room and returned clutching a crumpled piece of paper. I drew this, he said, climbing back onto the couch beside Desmond. In my dreams. Desmond took the drawing carefully. His breath caught. The figure was unmistakable, a massive wolf, dark and powerful, standing over smaller figures. But it wasn't attacking. It was shielding them, protecting them. At the top, in careful 7-year-old handwriting, the Shadow King who saves people instead of hurting them. Haimey has vivid dreams, Ava said softly from the kitchen doorway. The doctors think it's the fever. It wasn't the fever. Desmond's hands tightened on the paper. The boy was having prophetic visions, another symptom of emerging alpha blood. And if Haimey was dreaming of him specifically, this is remarkable, Desmond managed. Why do you think he saves people? Because that's what kings should do, Haimey said matter-of-factly. The bad kings hurt people because they're scared. But the good ones, he tapped the drawing. The good ones are brave enough to be nice. Out of the mouths of children. 3,000 years of philosophy distilled into one simple truth by a 7-year-old in dinosaur pajamas. Desmond opened his mouth to speak, to confess, to tell them everything. Ava, there's something you should. The window exploded inward. Glass shattered across the floor as 3 figures crashed through, massive and feral. Not fully human, not fully wolf, rogues, stuck in the violent in-between state of those who'd lost control. Their eyes glowed sickly yellow, and the stench of the Beta Council's magic rolled off them in waves. Desmond Ronan, the largest one, snarled. The Council sends their regards. Time slowed. Desmond saw Ava grab Haimey, saw the terror in her eyes, saw her position herself between the monsters and her son, saw her prepare to die fighting. Not tonight. Not ever. Something inside him shattered. The careful human mask he'd worn, the control he'd maintained for centuries. His eyes blazed crimson gold, ancient and terrible. Power erupted from him like a shockwave, rattling the apartment walls. The rogues hesitated. They'd expected the Alpha King. They hadn't expected him here, now, with something to protect. Desmond moved. One moment he was on the couch. The next, he'd crossed the room in a blur of impossible speed, catching the first rogue by the throat and hurling him through the opposite wall. Plaster exploded. The creature didn't get up. The second lunged at him with claws extended. Desmond caught its wrist mid-strike, twisted, and the sickening crack of bone echoed through the apartment. His other hand shot out, fingers elongating into something between human and beast, and tore through the rogue's shoulder. "Get Haimey to the bedroom," he growled, his voice layered with something inhuman.
Now.
But Ava stood frozen, staring at him, at what he'd become. His hands weren't fully human anymore. His eyes blazed with predatory fire. When he snarled at the third attacker, she saw fangs. The third rogue was smarter. It feinted toward Desmond but dove for Haimey instead. Desmond's roar shook the building. He intercepted the creature mid-leap, and they crashed together into the tiny kitchen. Dishes shattered. The table splintered. The rogue's claws raked across Desmond's chest, tearing through his expensive shirt, drawing blood. But Desmond was 3,000 years old. He was the Alpha King. And these pathetic council dogs had made one fatal mistake. They'd threatened his family. He caught the rogue's jaw in one hand and its shoulder in the other. For a moment, their eyes met. The creature saw its death reflected in crimson gold. "Tell the council," Desmond whispered, his voice death itself. "I'm done playing by their rules." He threw the rogue through the shattered window. It tumbled 3 stories down, landing with a wet thump in the snow below. Silence fell, broken only by Desmond's ragged breathing and the distant wail of car alarms. He turned slowly to face Ava and Haimey. Ava clutched her son, her face pale, her body shaking. But she didn't look away. She stared at Desmond, at the monster standing in her destroyed apartment, blood on his claws, death in his eyes. "What are you?" she whispered. "The truth," Desmond said, his voice still rough with the wolf.
I'm
The first rogue he'd thrown through the wall stirred.
Rose.
Blood dripped from its muzzle, and its claws, Desmond saw them now, gleamed with silver coating. Wolfsbane toxin glistened on the tips. "Council wanted you distracted," it rasped, lunging. Desmond tried to dodge, but the apartment was too small. The claws caught his side, tearing deep. Silver fire exploded through his veins, and he stumbled. The poison worked fast, burning through even his ancient immunity. The rogue from the street crashed back through the window, limping but alive. And suddenly there were two of them, and Desmond was wounded, and Ava was screaming, because the limping one had grabbed Haimey.
No.
Ava launched herself at the creature, all 5'0" of terrified mother, armed with nothing but a broken chair leg. The rogue backhanded her casually. She hit the wall and crumpled. White-hot rage cleared Desmond's vision. Silver poison, be damned. He moved through the pain, grabbing the wounded rogue and hurling it into its companion. They crashed together in a tangle of limbs. But in the chaos, one set of claws found Haimey's arm. The boy cried out, and something erupted from him.
Power.
Raw, primal, ancient alpha power that no 7-year-old's body should contain. It rolled off Haimey in waves, and the rogue that had grabbed him shrieked, its hand blistering where it touched the boy's skin. Old blood. The creature hissed, stumbling back. The boy carries the first alpha's line. The council will want. Desmond's hand closed around its throat. The council will get nothing. He tore its head from its shoulders. The other rogue, seeing its death in Desmond's eyes, fled through the window into the night. Silence. Then Haimey collapsed.
No, no, no.
Ava crawled to her son, gathering him against her chest. His skin burned with fever. His small body convulsed. Haimey, baby, stay with me. Desmond dropped to his knees beside them, silver poison still burning through his veins. But Haimey was worse, much worse. He could see it now, the boy's latent alpha blood trying to surface, tearing his mortal body apart from the inside. His illness, Desmond said hoarsely. It's not an illness. He has alpha blood. Ancient, powerful blood that's been dormant in your family line for generations. It's waking up now, and his body can't handle the transition. The fever's the bone pain. You're saying my son is dying? Ava's voice broke. Yes. Desmond met her eyes. But I can save him.
How?
My blood. Through a bonding rite. He glanced at the destruction around them, at the monster he'd revealed himself to be. It will stabilize his power, help his body accept the change. But it will also bind him to me.
To my pack.
He'll be mine to protect, mine to teach. Forever. And if you don't do this, he dies.
Tonight.
Maybe tomorrow. But soon. Ava looked down at Haimey, her precious boy shaking in her arms. The child she'd fought for, sacrificed everything for. She thought about the drawing. The Shadow King who saves people instead of hurting them. She'd watched Desmond fight, seen him kill without hesitation, witnessed the monster beneath the man. But she'd also watched him make burnt cookies with gentle hands, listened to him admit his loneliness, seen him wait 47 minutes on Christmas Eve for a woman he'd never met. Monsters didn't wait. Monsters didn't kneel in broken glass, wounded and bleeding, offering salvation to a stranger's child. Ava looked up at the Alpha King, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. Do it. Desmond's claws extended. He drew them across his own palm, dark blood welling up. Then he pressed his hand to Haimey's chest, over the boy's racing heart. By blood and bond, he whispered in a language older than civilization. By pack and protection. By my power and my oath. I claim this child. I name him mine. Light exploded from the point of contact, crimson and gold, ancient and terrible and beautiful. And Haimey's eyes snapped open, glowing with the same impossible fire. The light faded slowly, like dawn breaking over ancient mountains. Haimey's breathing steadied. The fever flush left his cheeks. The convulsion stopped. Desmond pulled his hand back, and the wound on his palm sealed itself. The silver poison burned less now, his body already fighting it off. But exhaustion crashed over him. The bonding rite had cost more than he'd expected. Mom? Haimey's voice was small, uncertain. His eyes still glowed faintly, gold-flecked and strange. Ava sobbed and pulled him close, checking him frantically. You're okay. You're okay. Oh God, you're okay. I feel different. Haimey looked down at his hands, turning them over. Stronger. Like I'm not sick anymore. His gaze found Desmond, and recognition bloomed across his face. You're him. The Shadow King from my dreams. You saved me. Yes, Desmond said simply. Just like I drew. You saved me instead of hurting me. Something in Desmond's chest cracked open. 3,000 years, and a 7-year-old child understood him better than anyone in his entire kingdom. I will always save you, Haimey. That's my oath. Ava was still holding her son, but her eyes were on Desmond now. The apartment was destroyed, walls shattered, furniture splintered, blood and glass everywhere. A body still lay where it had fallen. The evidence of violence and lies surrounded them. You're not human, she said quietly.
No.
You're some kind of wolf king? The Alpha King. The oldest and most powerful of our kind. He met her gaze steadily, refusing to hide anymore. I've ruled for 3 millennia. The Beta Council sees me as a threat because I'm trying to change our ways, teach mercy instead of dominance. They sent rogues to kill me, but you and Haimey got caught in the middle. Because you waited for me. Yes. You could have left. At any point tonight, you could have walked away. Desmond's jaw tightened. I could have. I should have. It would have been safer for all of us. But you didn't. Ava stood, still holding Haimey against her side. She stepped over broken glass, moving closer to Desmond. You waited 47 minutes. You bought us dinner. You made burnt cookies with my son. You saved his life. Her voice dropped to a whisper. You chose us. I did. Why? The same question she'd asked in the cafe. But now, covered in blood and surrounded by the ruins of her home, the answer was different. Because for the first time in 3,000 years, Desmond said, I wanted to be present. Not 10 steps ahead. Not calculating. Just here. He gestured at the destroyed apartment. I know what I am. I know what I've brought into your life. If you want me to leave. I don't care what you are, Desmond. Ava's hand found his, scarred fingers lacing with clawed ones. I care about who you choose to be. The word struck him like a physical blow. Catherine had left because he'd never been present. But Ava, this fierce, exhausted woman, was asking him to stay. Not despite his nature, but because of his choice. I choose this, Desmond said, his voice rough with emotion he'd forgotten how to express. I choose you. Both of you. The messy, complicated, mortal life. The burnt cookies and the tiny apartment and the danger that comes with me. All of it. Haimey wiggled free from his mother's grip and padded across the glass-strewn floor. He stopped in front of Desmond, looking up with those new, gold-flecked eyes. Does this mean we're a family now? Desmond dropped to one knee, bringing himself to the boy's eye level. A king kneeling, an immortal bowing to a child's wisdom. Yes, he said, if you'll have me. Haimey threw his arms around Desmond's neck. I knew you'd come. I saw it in my dreams. Over the boy's shoulder, Desmond met Ava's eyes. She was crying again, but smiling too. She mouthed 2 words. Thank you. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. The broken window let in cold air and snow. Tomorrow would bring questions, danger, the Beta Council's retaliation. But tonight, on Christmas Eve, the Alpha King held a 7-year-old child and felt something he'd thought lost forever. Home. They worked in silence, boarding up the shattered window with plywood Desmond retrieved from the building's maintenance closet. His hands, still half-clawed, still dangerous, handled the hammer with surprising gentleness. Ava held the board steady, and together they sealed out the cold. They'll come back, Desmond said finally. The Beta Council. They know about Haimey now. They'll see him as a threat or a weapon. Then we run. Ava's voice was matter-of-fact. Disappear. Change our names. They'll find you. They always do. Then what do you suggest? Desmond set down the hammer, turning to face her. I take Haimey into my pack. Full protection. But that means living in my world. Guards, protocols, constant vigilance. Your life as you knew it ends. Ava looked around the destroyed apartment, her home, her sanctuary, now a crime scene. She thought about running, about hiding, about all the years she'd spent fighting alone. Running isn't protection, she said quietly. It's just another kind of fear. If they're coming either way, I'd rather face them standing still. She met his eyes.
Together.
You understand what you're choosing? I'm not safe, Ava. I'm centuries of violence wrapped in a civilized face. I've killed thousands. I'll kill thousands more to protect you and Haimey. I know. She stepped closer, close enough to see the gold still flickering in his eyes. But you also waited 47 minutes for a woman you'd never met. You made burnt cookies. You got on your knees for my son. Her hand found his cheek. That's who you choose to be. I've spent centuries being alone. The confession came out raw, breaking. I don't know if I remember how to be anything else. You start by not leaving tonight. Ava's thumb traced his jaw. Tomorrow you show up again.
And the day after that.
That's what love is, Desmond. Not the grand gestures. Not the bonding rites or the blood oaths. Just showing up. Again and again. Even when it's hard. He leaned into her touch like a man starved for it. I don't know how to do this. Neither do I. She smiled, tired but genuine. We'll figure out together. Christmas morning broke cold and bright. Haimey woke before dawn, his new eyes glowing softly in the darkness. He padded to the living room where Desmond sat watch and climbed into his lap without hesitation. Santa came, Haimey whispered. Did he? I asked for someone to take care of Mom. Someone to teach me about being strong. The boy looked up at him with ancient eyes in a child's face. Asked for a family. And he brought you. Desmond's throat tightened. I'm not sure Santa had much to do with it. Maybe not. Haimey rested his head against Desmond's chest. But you're here anyway. I am. And you're staying? As long as you'll have me. Forever, then. 3 months later, Desmond stood in the training yard of his fortress. No longer cold, no longer empty. Haimey moved through combat forms with growing confidence, his small body channeling power that shouldn't exist in one so young. Again, Desmond instructed. But this time, feel the earth beneath you. Let it ground your power. Haimey tried, stumbled, tried again. His eyes flared gold as he found the balance. From the fortress entrance, Ava watched with Margaret. He's getting stronger, the witch observed. Too strong, Ava murmured. The council will hear about it. They already have. Margaret's face was grim. Desmond's spies report movement. They're planning something. Ava's hands tightened on the stone railing, but she didn't look away from her son. From her family. In the yard, Haimey completed the form perfectly. Desmond caught him in a fierce hug, and the boys' laughter echoed off ancient walls. Let them come, Ava said quietly. Because she'd learned something these past months, watching an immortal king kneel to help her son with homework, seeing him wait patiently while Haimey explained dinosaur facts, witnessing the way he looked at her like she was the only thing keeping him tethered to humanity. Love wasn't weakness. Love was what gave you something worth fighting for. And they would fight. Together. Sometimes, love doesn't arrive on time. It arrives when the heart is finally ready. If this Christmas Eve story touched you, moved you, or gave you hope, please give this video a like. It truly helps the channel grow. And if you believe that kindness still exists, that second chances are real, and that love can find you even when life feels unfair, subscribe to the channel. More heartfelt stories are waiting for you, and the next one might be even more special.